Okay, so this is Dr. Mobeen. We are here. Let's do our chit chat. You want to do some art? I'm going to share my screen. How is everyone doing? Who was number one today? I heard John was number one. Paul was number one too. T was number. So Paul, T, D, John, everyone. I think Paul was number one. So Paul Bork, number one. So how is everything? I'm looking here. The comments are over here. Greetings, Sigrid. John says, I don't want to be number two. Okay. Somebody has to be number two, or we should just go from one to three. So, how are things? What's happening? Ready for some art? Some neurogenesis? We did this art last time. And then here are some birds. So let's do some birds. So, meaning, let's make some birds. Doug says chit chat or art. I am okay either way. Art or chit chat. We want more spatulas. Yes. So that was a funny story that my wife came in and she said, hey, good luck. And then I had spatulas here and I had spatulas here. And we have a untold rule that before my talk, we will not do anything that would throw us off and or put me under some sort of a stress that I cannot then present correctly or more in a good way. So I know that she had lots of questions for why are the spatulas and spoons here, but she decided to give me a break and she said, huh? And then she went, wooden spoons, yes. John says wooden spoons. Okay. DDS says, give us a bird. Okay. So Gene says, how is the app coming? So the story with the app is that we developed a first revision on Bubble.io. And so it went fine. We were able to develop a lot of it in 2 or 3 days, but it was so difficult to work with it on the phone. It was the user interface is just not good for the phone, and neither does the Bubble.io has any good Flex systems. So we very quickly moved away from Bubble.io, and then we moved to Flutter, which is for iOS and Android. It's a cross-platform platform. And so we started working with Flutter, and very quickly we found out that Dart is a great language. I love it. Plus the Flutter has this new UI system. They have their own built UI on top of OpenGL, a graphic language. And so they have a beautiful system, but the nesting and the depth in the Dart language was just too much. So we then moved to React Native, which is a Facebook platform, but it's not meaning Facebook doesn't have anything to do with it other than Facebook created it. Eventually it makes that native, it creates native components, but it has its own Java machine in it. So we have now moved to React Native. So today was our second day. Yesterday was the first day. We have already made the login and authentication system we are using Firebase in the backend. So my hope is in another 3-4 days we will start requesting some people to join us and to start testing the app and to start putting data in there. One thing that I did, Gene, I did not ask for the name. I do not want people's information to be personally identifiable for HIPAA reasons or privacy reason. I just do not want to collect information. That also creates a risk to the data, that data can be useless because we don't, anybody can log in and do it. One, I'm not asking for the name. Secondly, I'm not asking for the exact date of birth, only the month and year. So I'm trying to make sure that data is as anonymized, as less connected to a person as possible within reason. I don't want it to be so disconnected that it is orphaned. And then what we'll do is, as we run surveys, for those surveys, we can then ask people specifically to say, we need this kind of data or this kind of identification. Would you be okay with that? So that is how far we are. And of course, I'm having fun developing it as well. This is me trying to do engineering after 4 years, and it is fun. Meanwhile, in America says, appreciate the privacy consideration. Absolutely. That is the first thing I want to do. It does mean that tomorrow when we will, so I intend to create a accompanying website where there are reports for overall community. So one could get report within their zip code or their country and so on. But they will be reports and stats for their own condition as well. And the conditions like vaccine or long COVID or acute COVID or others, these will be doable. So I think it will be a very interesting app for us. And considering what's going on in the long COVID world, less help, especially the injury side, I think it would be useful. Meanwhile, in America says, hi, Dr. Mean, your previous talk really highlights how the incidence of long COVID is still such a strange mystery. Absolutely. So we are still, for example, when I was reading that study, I was thinking that saying that sore throat or headache are associated, they are just indicators of the disease itself, that somebody got COVID. So you are correct that there is still a lot to be done. Meanwhile, in America says, can't wait, would be happy to contribute your data collection. Thank you very much. And I will pray and I would wish that you are not part of data collection as a patient, but as a healthy person. Wish you well. Jean says, excellent update, very important work, and so glad you're enjoying doing it as well. Absolutely. I can show you some of the work that we have done. If I start the, this will be visual code. So let me share my screen and show you. So we are using Visual Studio Code. And so far we have created a login system, a home screen or a splash screen. Authentication is done, login is done. Now the dashboard is in works. We have connected the Firebase as well. And I should not have flashed that data. That has the API key. So I will change the database. I'll create new API keys. meaning I'll create a new database. This database can be discarded. But anyway, so that is what we are doing. Okay, what else is? Dr. Bean, there's a problem with line 79. Let me see. Did you read the. So we were just before this lecture I started doing. So now I have to do three things. In the morning, the business, then in the evening, this lecture, or after lunch to this. And then at night, I'm working on this database and this thing. So there are with my team. So my team then starts working at their daytime. So the latest was that they committed this change for the dashboard, which is not yet working. So maybe there is a problem because of that. Somewhere here. John, you messing with me? Meanwhile, in America says, what do you mean? You have no time. And that is a funny thing. There are so many folks who are so upset with me because I do not debate them or I do not discuss things with them, and they want me to join them in their threads on Twitter or YouTube and discuss, and they ask me questions. Where is your evidence for this? And where is your evidence for that? I just don't have time. And for everything, I do it very clearly that all the references are in the description. And if you know it, how many times have you seen me doing a talk without a study? I think I've never done that other than if I'm discussing a mechanism. And so folks do not even bother to go to that study and read what is there. Instead, first they call me a liar. Then they ask me to provide them evidence, which is in that study, but they don't bother to see the study. Some are genuinely curious, but they also don't bother to see the study. Some just want me to engage with them on Twitter because they want to discuss things with me, either because they are upset or they are happy. And I have just so many things to do that's not something I can further engage with. Paul is saying, yes, John was messing with me. There was nothing with the. John says, too many pushes, not enough pops. Oh, wait, that's assembly. Actually, do you know, John, that my beginning of engineering was with assembly? So I know what you mean, too many pushes and not enough pops. Or if you do one extra pop, and all of a sudden your program goes in some real weird place. Oh, Bambi's here. Bambi, after a long time. Hello, cool beans. Anyone else recovering from recent heat waves? Thankfully, today was cooler in the UK, but my home is still hot. Yes, so my team member, one of the team member, Alex, is from UK, and he actually took an off today because he was not well because I think of this heat wave, and he said that usually houses do not have air conditioners, and now in this heat wave the temperature is too high. Here come the naked peoples. I blocked them. Oh, somebody had already blocked them. DDS says, there goes the naked man. Yes. This was so funny. Yesterday, somebody for the last couple of videos, some people are really upset. What I do not understand is, why will somebody just want me to all the time talk about vaccines are great? I have been doing the vaccines. I've discussed their trials. I've discussed their benefits, their structures, their architectures, their platforms, their technologies. Um, and then I discuss their side effects. So people still want me to just talk about how amazing the vaccines are. But if you think about it, the pandemic has changed. Vaccination statuses have changed. The outcomes are out. Vaccines efficacies are not there. That's not an anti-science. That is the science. And so I don't understand. I think it's just that when I say something which goes opposite to people's point of views. For example, somebody said yesterday, that was so interesting for me. They said, you are saying, what was it? They articulated something like this, that the um, various communities saying that go back to masking or go back to social distancing and those is, or they're scaring people, is totally fine because do you want them to wait for the tsunami to hit and not be able to do anything? And that's not the, that's a very weird argument to make, because I have never said that. Actually, in the contrary, our healthcare authorities, the so-called leaders, have actually messed up the whole pandemic all the way through. So saying that they would do something right at this time, I don't think so. But that they thought that I'm saying that it should not. What I have been saying is Omicron is milder. Data shows it. Or it is not as lethal, whatever is the reason. That is a vaccine protection or a previous infection protection or a hybrid protection, or people knowing how to live better with the virus, or virus becoming milder, or people having better immune system, optimal immune system, some doing prophylaxis, maybe all of that. This point in time in COVID is not the point in time 2 years ago, and the panic cannot be the same. Naked Man came back. So, anyways, then somebody asked me, there was a very interesting comment. Somebody said, where is your evidence that vaccines don't work? Oh, no, sorry, vaccines cause problems. One, the clotting and the cardiac issues have been out there for years now, or months. And there are tons, and even NIH's own study of the problems with the neurological outcomes that I have been discussing with some of the patients who participated in that studies. So I don't have to actually present more evidence. There is evidence. The thing that is missing, which I really find it to be very interesting, just like we can say what is the percentage of long COVIDs, what is the percentage of severe diseases, there still is no data to define what do we mean by rare. The vaccine injury is rare. What does rare mean? That is still not defined. Can you imagine this? After 2.5 years of going through this, we still cannot tell what does rare mean. Is it 1% of the vaccinated people, 0.1%, 1 millionth of a percent? What is it? And I think that is a deliberate thing, that is not done. Susan says, are we reaching a peak of BA5 in USA? Let's see. Paul is actually the right person to answer. So if I do that, if I bring in this and say our world in data, United States. Correct. So, Barbara, this has been so strange for me. We can individually say that 30 years old who get Moderna or mRNA vaccine, this percentage of them is expected. Background rate is this, their background rate is this. Then Israel comes out and says, no, it is actually 133 times more. But there is no data point anywhere, solid data that we can use for US to say everybody who gets vaccinated, out of all the doses, billions of doses, the exact number of people with problems is this, and that is this percentage. Look, we did this long COVID today. So that really surprises me that it is not done. And I'm not conspiratorial, you know this. I do not think in those terms. So I do not think that they don't want it to be just not known. I just think that they are so lazy, or they just don't care enough, or they don't actually think it is serious enough that they don't. So, whatever. Okay, so let's see. Let's look at the cases first. And with that caveat that we know the case counts are all over the place, let's see. This is something that Paul does the best, but still, um, let's just keep US for first. Okay, so case count. I'm going to keep this big peak over here as well. This is January 16, 2.394 million 7 days rolling average versus 307. Is that true? 373? Okay, so this is not 2.39 million. This is 2,392 versus 373. So that is where we are. Um, I think we should request Paul to join us, but I don't think we're going to see a peak for, but that's the cases. Who's counting? That who is counting is also a very interesting data point for us to say that it's not causing enough serious disease that people are running to say, please count me, do my test, figure it out. Then hospitalizations. Once again, I know Bambi is here. We should look at UK too. So these are the hospitalizations. Make it a little bigger. And here, so hospitalizations, if I try to look at the way Paul looks at these, is that this slope, Paul, tell me if I'm a good student, this slope upward and then this peak, if you compare that slope to this slope, we still do not know if the peak would occur. Slope seems to be slower or rising slowly. So that's interesting. And now if we look at deaths, I know your question was when the peak will be over. I think that this is it. A similar endemic state would continue for some more time. So here are the deaths, unfortunately. So if you see here, this is February 3 or 2, 7.63 deaths per million 7 days rolling average. Correct? 7 days rolling average, 19, so deaths per million. And we are at 1.2. And we were, before the Omicron became a big deal, if we go to January, February, March, that is when Omicron came in. And it just kept declining, this sharp decline. And since then, to me, this seems like more of an endemic state instead of a BA5 pushing things towards severity. We will see more. And so think about it. People are not the same. For example, there is a study that says 94% of the people are seropositive. There is another study in unvaccinated, uninfected, that shows 64% of them are seropositive. They don't even know they had the infection. They just, without having the infection, without any symptoms, they caught it, they fought with it, and they're fine. And they have the antibodies. So seroprevalence is there, protection from vaccines is there, protection from previous infections is there, herd immunity is developing. Everybody around us who has seropositivity is contributing to somewhat of a herd immunity, if not a lot. So I think we are in an endemic state instead of. Johnson says pandemic of not testing. Yeah, there's no testing. Doug says pandemic of testing, pandemic of no testing. Old school says, oh no, roller girl. I visited my dad in Vegas one August. Upstairs apartment, no AC. I thought I was gonna croak. So Texas says I'm a pessimist, almost 700 dying per day. So I think I totally understand that people dying is a every one person dying is a problem. But if you compare that to the, so when you're not looking at the averages, it looks all over the place. But really, let me go back to average. Instead of 7 day, how does weekly look like? This is weekly. So compare this, that we have more cases as well now, so many more that are not even tested, but death rate is staying down. So I hope it stays down, and we eventually we all have to meet the virus and then survive it. I think survival chances are increased nowadays because of milder virus and better immunity. Elkun says 300 to 400 per day. So I didn't actually look at the per day. Let's see. New per day. Confirmed deaths, confirmed. So these are still per million, 2.62. So if I go to total, do we have total? Reproductive rate will be very interesting to see. Our reproductive rate is 1.09. It is endemic. It's come down from 1.3. Paul actually taught me to see here for other ways. New deaths per million. So they have new deaths per million. I was looking for absolute new cases, deaths. So hospitalizations are a little more, ICU are lesser compared to other times, and deaths are lesser too. So cases are not being counted correctly. Hospitalizations are probably in line with the cases more, but ICU and deaths are lower, which is a good thing. Again, even one person at risk is not a good thing, but compared to where we were at, we are in a better shape. So John says, do you know if the US reports deaths with COVID and of COVID? This might also be an issue. Yes. So I do not know how they are um, labeling at this time. Do they have a protocol in the hospital to say when somebody dies, we have to figure out if they were dying because of? I'm sure they have something, but I do not know if reporting is, or how is that data pulled. That is true. I used to say that in the beginning of pandemic as well, that if everybody just stayed in for 30 days, the virus will have to go away. Elquin says, middle top, there is a checkbox to uncheck to get absolute numbers. Okay. Let's go back to, thank you, Elquin. Confirm deaths relative to new per day. Yes, thank you. So here, for example, 3,854 January 26, or 4,000, 2,000, 4,180, 18. And nowadays, 883 July 20. So yes, 14,978. So about 1,000 people dying every other day. So for example, that may be reporting. July 3 is just 3. Then July 5 is 444. Then July 7 is 1,100. So that seems to be reporting. So if we then did 7-day rolling average, 404 average. John says CDC's last data point was 873. Was that the average they were saying? CDC COVID tracker deaths. So 7 days moving average daily death US. Their data point is saying 347, and they are in this 300 type time frame since May 2. So they came down in March from 7,800 average, and they reached 300 point in April. April, May, June, July, August. So we are in about 5 months now. So for these 5 months, the death rate or deaths, 7-day moving average, has been within 300, 400 range. It has not changed from there. Yeah, look at it. So if you take this horizontal line, it started somewhere here in April. And since then, it is this way. So for me, yes, the damage is still happening. And I do not know if anyone can stop that. We have not been able to stop this kind of a damage even before. We actually had more damage. So I don't know if the answer is, all right, go and force everyone to have a vaccine and that would fix it, because we are seeing people with the one vaccine or two vaccine or boosted also getting cases, plus getting severe as well. Good news is that the severity or people who become severe are less. There is a protection from previous infection and by vaccines. So if there was no vaccine, there would have been a huge um, large scale uh, damage. But is the vaccine answer for everything, especially the one that doesn't work very well for this variant? We are fortunate and I think grateful to the variant that has become milder as well. Elquin says, time to talk about metabolic disorders which kill 10 times more people per day. Yes, and so how about what are the flu deaths? Flu yearly flu deaths in the US. Okay, so illness, this is projections, right? 2010 to 2020. If I go to 2020 here, let's go to 2019 before pandemic. They had estimate 95%, estimate 95, estimate 95. So estimate was 29 million. This is a 95% confidence interval. What is this data though? Symptoms, hospitalizations, do they have? Okay. So here, deaths. So if I go to the, man, this is a weird graph. Let's see. 2019, 2018. So 28,000 deaths are estimated. Hospitalizations, 380,000. Now, if I go to CDC data, United States, what are the total deaths in this year, 2022? Is there any way of cumulative deaths? No. I'm sure this data is somewhere that what are the total number of deaths during this time. And we can then compare it. Susan says, will the variants get weaker? Yes, so they are becoming weak and they will continue to become weak. Instead of weak, I would say human friendly. They're still competent viruses. It's just that they are becoming more adapted to live with us. Alicia says, I love watching Dr. Bean work. I find it fascinating the way his brain works. Thank you. So Alexander says, is long COVID the same as ME/CFS? There is a phenotype of long COVID, which is very similar to the ME/CFS. But not all long COVID are the same way. There are some that are neurological, there are some that have more respiratory, there are some that have more GIT issues. And then there is a category which is with the fatigue and myalgias and such. Elkin says it's Center for Disease Control, not Center for Data Comprehensibility. Yes, it's actually really very simple. If I can Google it and say COVID deaths in the US in 2022, I just wish that data is somewhere. Cumulative data. This is total, but not for 1 year. If I go to Statista, this is number of coronavirus disease deaths in the US as of July 13 by age. So total deaths are, is that the, so there are 1 million deaths. That is, I think, total. The question is, I'm sure you can download their Excel and then just filter out by the year. And they want, I think I have registered with them. I'll look into it separately. This slicing and dicing of the data is very important. Total US all regions, total US all time, let's say 6 months. Can't get it while staying live in front of all of you. I'll have to do it separately. Now you can imagine how much it takes with all of my shortcomings, how much it takes to do this homework. Bambi says NHS stopped mask wearing in hospital and GP surgeries for a month. The COVID increased staff off sick. Now they're wearing masks again. Would have thought it. Okay, so let's see how's UK doing. In honor of Bambi, our world in data, let's say we add here United Kingdom and we remove US. Okay, so UK, this is the overall picture. Confirmed death 7 days rolling average. What did relative to population do? Okay, so they had UK in January, February. So this is the original Omicron wave. Let's have the Paul Bork's case, admission, ICU, and deaths. Let's have this one. I've started calling this set of graphs Paul Borg graphs because Paul showed me how to do this. Okay, so here this was January 5, 2022. Cases per million 2,718. That was the recent peak, meaning the peak. Then in March, the peak was 1,300. And now, again, I don't think cases really are the good number anymore, 410. Hospital admissions are very similar to the April. So that is the original Omicron and BA5. BA5's wave seems to be actually now breaking, and it broke before becoming as bad as BA2. And if I compare that to the previous waves, UK's worst case was January 14, 2021, when 435 hospital admissions per million, and their current is 215, so half. At one point, they had gone down to 10. Then, that is May. Then came Delta, I believe. This was all Delta who pushed it up. Then came Omicron, which further pushed it up, the hospitalizations. Then Omicron was receding, and then BA5 came in and they went up. Now, that is the hospitals. But if you look at the ICU, that is a very different behavior. So here, the hospitalization in January 21 and hospitalizations in January 24, 21 is kind of hospital and ICU are in sync. But then in the Omicron time, ICU has not stayed as in sync as this was. But maybe this is, you can say, is similar. And then death rate has also kind of fluctuating. It is increasing again now here. but not as before. UK actually seems to have a little more intensity of Omicron, even in terms of death rate. Their death rate in June was actually low, and now it is going up. They had Omicron BA.5. They had said in June it will become dominant. So, interestingly, less ICU, more deaths, more hospitalizations. That is UK. UK is concerning. Bambi says UKGB is playing. So Rand says, more human friendly. How do you know we won't get a new variant in the future that isn't more deadly like Delta? Yes. So for Delta to be deadly, it was not just the variant itself. Because if you see, even Omicron has, for example, for BA.5, this Kai Soto from Japan, he came out and said it is more fusogenic than BA.1 and 2, and it goes deeper in the lungs as well. These were similar things that Delta was doing. So it's not that Delta actually just had a superiority of damage, causing damage. It was also we being the sitting ducks for it. It was better than its predecessor because, see, the for this virus, this was the very interesting thing. The incubation time was playing in its favor, the Delta, because it went from 5 days to 2 days. So it still allowed people to kind of walk about with Delta, give it to others, and then fall sick, and then fall severely sick. So that was still working for it. Now, whenever the newer variant has to come, that has to be dangerous. It has to do a few things. Number one, it has to have less resistance from us. So that means we still are going to have some people who would have less resistance just because maybe they're frail, maybe they have comorbidities, maybe they have cancers or immunosuppressions. So that is possible, but that isn't lot more possible. The reason for that is that even if Delta comes back now, Delta doesn't have the exposure of the same society to it anymore, because those who were really not able to handle it, they unfortunately became sick and died. Then another huge number became sick and recovered. Then others got vaccinated. So, one, it has to be able to infect us. So, let's say we give it that fine, we will have a variant that will be able to cause more damage to us. The second thing it has to do is that it has to be faster than the current variant. That is how they're becoming dominant. And this is why BA.4 and 5 are having hard time. They are not that fast. Because of that, if you see their dominance is so slow that they're almost like BA.1 and 2 in terms of their, they have taken a lot of BA.1 and 2, or Omicron went up very fast because it had a great superiority on Delta. But BA.1 and 2 had given away the chances to cause severe disease and taken up a faster transmission. Now BA.5 is a little faster. If it was too fast, it would have become dominant within May timeframe or before. It is slower. A newer variant that wants to cause more damage and still be transmissible to society will have to have a very silent prevalence window. But as soon as you increase the incubation time, these variants would stay dominant because they're spreading faster. If you say that, all right, we want to give it a shorter incubation time so it can spread faster, let's say half a day, and then the next part of the half a day, it would make the person severely ill. Then you can imagine that it's just going to have people fall very fast and all of a sudden the societies would lock down, they would close, the hospitals would have the ICUs filled, and there will be mandates, and once again we'll go back and hunker down. So are more lethal variants being generated in people? Yes. They have to compete with the current ones in transmissibility. Only then they can. The second thing is to compete with lethality. It's going to be difficult for the new one. It has to do so many tricks. So people say that, hey, Delta came after Alpha and Beta. Yes, but that was not the same society. That was not the same level of resistance that this one is getting. So then they say that, look, BA5 has escaped everything. But no, not really. That is the false narrative. It has escaped in terms of, um, let's say, causing cases, but that was never supposed to have stopped. The immunity from severe cases is still present. That means it really has not escaped. So Texas says R naught is over 18. So we just looked at the R naught for US, that was 1.0 something. The question is, let's say R naught is 18, it's spreading very fast. Is it lethal as well as Delta? Meanwhile, in America says, I see many more years of hiding in my home at that rate. Yeah, so if we did unfortunately end up with a more transmissible and more lethal virus, I can tell you that would kill people with such a rate that we will just be scratching our head, because it would have to be faster than the incubation window would have to be so short, and then the lethality will, so it would have to transmit like a wildfire and then cause deaths. That will be very, very damaging, plus very difficult as well for this virus, because we have developed a lots of resistance. John says, is there anything people can take or do in order to avoid continuing to lose hair after COVID? So this is one area. There are actually two areas where I have not done enough research. One is the hair loss, and the other one is the menstrual irregularities. So, John, give me another week or so, and I will work on those and discuss. Daniel says, you talked about the solution for heart palpitations caused by the fluid imbalance due to COVID, but what would be the solution for palpitation due to neurological outcomes? So, a couple of things. One, many people are fortunate that this situation continues to recover on its own, and they become better. That's one. Second, there are also a number of people for whom it becomes less but does not go away. I actually know some patients where it didn't even become less, and they had to go get medical help by taking beta blockers or other such treatments. Even in one case, surgical ablation was needed. So I think that the first thing to do will be to look at what is causing the neurological issue, what is irritating the nerve or the heart, and from there the treatment will come in. Meanwhile, in America says 5-day Paxlovid temporarily available alleviated all long COVID symptoms for me. Thoughts on role of viral debris in long COVID and associated treatment. So,
I don't know
Alexa, uh, so the this is an area where still there is so much to be known, that do we actually have the virus hiding in us? There is another possibility, and that is the autoantibodies. If there are autoantibodies, imagine, I would not use you. Imagine me. I'm sick. I got COVID, made the antibodies against the virus. Then I made autoantibodies against these antibodies. Now, these antibodies, autoantibodies, can connect with my AS2. We've done this discussion many times, correct? The Neil Jenkin theory. Now, those autoantibodies are running around, they're causing AS2 triggering, they are causing biological activity, they're causing inflammation all the time, and there's no one to stop them. One, their identifier will be anti-ACE2 antibodies will be present in the patient, and secondly, there will be inflammatory markers. Now, inflammatory markers will be present in any case of inflammation, whatever is the reason, even the virus. But anti-ACE2 antibodies will be very interesting marker. Now, when somebody gets, let's say, COVID, what happens is COVID's presence causes the body to make anti-COVID antibodies, which will also bind with the anti-COVID antibodies, which were bothering us. And as those complexes form and they are washed away, we start feeling better. But once that acute phase is gone again, our body goes back to making an anti-ACE2 antibodies or anti-idiotypical antibodies, and we go back to long COVID symptoms. So, solution, once again, in many people, it gradually decreases. In some, it does not. And in some, it just keeps bothering them. And so the solutions people have been trying, there is just one solution I have not gotten a um, update on. I will ask that patient. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy has been working very well. Autophagy has been working very well. Um, the For some, IVIG has worked very well, because one can expect that if they get a pool of IVIG which has anti-SARS-CoV-2 antibodies, and they would bind with the anti-idiotypical antibodies, and one would feel better. But that would be temporary, 2-3 months, and they'll start again. So then immunosuppression will help. Things like ivermectin that can bind with the SARS-CoV-2 type spike protein, they can help. The dandelion leaf extracts can help. And eventually, one of the patients, the thing that I said I have not seen how did work, was they did chemo. Their doctors did chemo to say, you know what, we need to kill your memory cells, to remove them and let the normal cells rebound, and then we'll see what's happening. And that was an extreme case because he was in a lot of trouble. I haven't asked him what is the result of that. I'll ask. Iggy Pop says, Dr. Pierre Corey is still in Twitter. I did not know. So, True Seeker says, oh, sorry, the question was from Meanwhile in America. Yes, chemo is extreme, but that would kill off all those bad memory cells that are just sitting there making out anti-idiotypical antibodies. Of course, his doctor uh, suggested that after he had gotten electrophoresis, he felt really good. Then I think IVIG, he felt really bad with IVIG. Steroids, but steroids is not a permanent solution. And then now chemo. I do not know about this, M. Gregory. Does lavender help? I do not know this. Hey Parth, how are you? Manuel Stangier says, wouldn't the virus destroy itself, becoming more deadly, plus more transmissive, plus shorter in yes, yes, you're correct. Remaining vulnerable groups would die quick and that's it. And then the virus would have to go away as well. So it is not the fittest virus. The virus that can kill us fast is not a fit virus because it is counterproductive for the virus itself. Where will it live it if it has killed us all? So it has to, those daughters of the virus will survive that have a better chance of living and transmitting. And they have to be faster in transmission so that they can dominate the other ones. And they have to be friendly so that they are more spread. That would be the eventual. Nowadays AI is very common. So what is AI algos? AI is artificial intelligence. Algos are neural networks that are just trying and trying and trying, and one thing works better and then they just keep making mutations on top of that, and then that works better and more, right? The virus is just AI. It's not actually intelligent, it's just mutating. Those mutations are giving it a chance to figure out, not even figure out, there would be a species variant selected that can live in all of us and can dominate. That would just naturally become the one selected. And with all of this, I wish and pray that we don't end up with a more deadly, faster virus. Because if that happens, we'll all be in trouble. But I would just submit to us, we actually just went through the pandemic where we were all sitting ducks with zero protection, and these variants couldn't do more than what they have done. Now, to expect that with us being more protective, with more aware of how to take care of ourselves, therapeutically, prophylactically, socially, many ways, we all have our own ways to figure out how do we handle it. For it to now have a chance with us to say, I can just go and destroy you all, I think it's going to be difficult. But we'll see. I can't tell the future very well, but I can just tell viruses' behaviors because as much as I've read. So that also is a limited knowledge. M. Gregory says a deadly faster one seems unnatural. No, it is possible. It is entirely possible at this time in somebody, a deadly faster one evolved and it killed them because the first person to be killed is that person. And imagine if that deadly faster one went to the next person in their home, maybe they got killed as well. So that is a point. If it starts killing people so fast, then how far can it go? And if it does not kill people very fast and transmits very fast, then good. That's what we want. But we'll see. So Iggy Pop says, how quickly do SARS-CoV-2 virus particles infect nasal cells? Second, minutes, hours? That's a very good question. I have never done this analysis of is virus standing outside to entering in the cell, and what is that time delay. I was doing this study a few days ago where they said the virus should be able to enter the cell within 30 minutes or shorter. So I would suspect 5-10 minutes, but I do not have the exact number. So Texas is just a few millions. Dead, that's all the living can brag for surviving. So I'm sorry, I think you think that my discussing this somehow is incorrect. Yes, that is the reality at this time. I don't think that we all planned that it should kill this many, and we still do not have control over who still ends up being a victim to this. uh, we just hope it does not. But I also don't think that we are at a stage to say, now lock everyone back in the houses once more. This is correct that Doug, you have a very sharp hearing. Yes, Luffy just start. I think he came back from outside and now is. It is so funny. He comes back from outside. He does this whining. Then somebody has to get up and go with him, and he wants to show us that, hey, look, I'm eating food. Then he'll eat while we sit next to him. Then he'll go back out. That is his new behavior. So, correct. And this could have been this virus that killed us all. But we are fortunate it didn't. Yes. So his food is always ready. He wants someone to sit with him while he's eating. It is so funny that he drinks water from the faucet. So he will come to the sink and he will mutter around over there, meow till somebody is presented in his glory. So we reach there, we open the faucet for him. Then he would start drinking water and he'll keep looking back every few minutes to make sure that you are still standing there. So he's a brat. I was thinking of having Luffy in one of the talks, so I'll see if I can have him tomorrow. Roller Girl says, I'm being hugged by my cat baby, cuddling under my arms as we listen to Dr. Bean. That's a good cat. Luffy is not a good cat. He is a bossy cat. That is correct. Luffy has learned the social aspects. Correct. Luffy, he wants to dine with someone. Yes, he he would always so he would always have to sit where you are, but when but he doesn't want to sit with you or that. He just wants to be where you are. And then if you are not where he is, then he is going to raise hell. Boxy Lady says, my cat Binks Mubin just turned one. Awesome. Great name. We need a picture to show. And happy birthday to Mubin. Yes. Yeah. So actually, he has been having fun. I have this chair here, and nowadays at night I'll come back here. So I'll take a break for a couple of hours, then I'll come back here to work on the app, and then he comes and sleeps next to me. So nowadays he's a little more happy. He has his little chair and the blanket and all that thrown ready for him. So with this, let's break for today, and let's pray that we don't end up with a more deadly, fast, lethal variant. I wish not. I don't want to be wrong on that one. So please like, subscribe, and share. I will see you tomorrow. Bye bye for now.